that's a great question.
Hope is so encompassing. You know, I'm trying to figure out what it even means to me, honestly.
Some days when I look around, it's like a tornado hitting me all over, and hope is tough to be found.
I think hope in our world is just not as much there as it was. Like, I feel like hope is just something that's so young.
Getting thrown stuff in life, work, marriage, kids, it can sometimes feel overwhelming to navigate all that.
There's just so many aspects of hope, whether it's with my children, with friends and family. You know, there's areas where I feel like I've given up hope.
Knowing that you don't have to have all the answers, or really not feeling the burden of doing life, on my own.
Having that sense that doesn't matter if something goes wrong, you have that something or someone that you can go to.
I feel like hope brings back the kid in us.
Building hope in my life looks like not just focusing on what is, but what can be. In the days where I'm centered, I know where my hope comes from, but it's tough.
This time of the year, Christmas time, is a time that, a lot of us can have these moments of stress, moments of trying to find that right gift, or, dealing with family as they come in and trying to get everything organized. And we can feel those kind of moments. But there are also these incredible moments of joy, these incredible moments of fulfillment and contentment. For me personally, I think about Christmas morning. I mean, I love Christmas morning because I get to experience my family. I get to see my family. One of the things I love about Christmas morning is, my boys, they all get in their PJs and they run down the hallway. They look something like this. And this was from a couple of years ago. And what's cool is, they all wear their PJs that they got the night before from their grandmother, who gives them, Christmas Eve PJs. Even my son in the back, that's Sam, you can kind of see him going like, oh, really? I got to wear these, but he wears them and he's great. And I love this moment because they all just come running down, and I see Jill and everybody with their cameras or their iPhones, just taking pictures. And I just see the expressions. I see the anticipation. And I love it as a father, just watching my boys run down the hallway into our living room. And then they see the gifts and they begin to open these gifts. And I just love all the moments. I mean, even the moments when they open a gift and it's like a toothbrush or underwear, and they're like, oh, thanks, Dad, or whatever. It's like those moments are kind of cool. But I also love the moments when they open that one gift. In the expression, the joy, the fulfillment in their life. And I see, expressions like this, like Big John with his Mickey Mouse clock. He's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Or, Michael opening, or Sam with the boots, or, Luke. By the way, he cut his hair. That's a lot of hair right there. But anyways, those moments, and I love them. As a father, I'm just sitting there going, man, it's been stressful. Lots of stuff have happened. But I love this. It's so satisfying. And then when they get one another gifts, sometimes, they have a nice moment as brothers. I mean, here's a picture of Sam and Big John hugging one another, and that's awesome as a father, because in a house with 5 boys, it's UFC night pretty much every night and every day and every moment. They're fighting, chokeholds, all this kind of stuff. It happens all the time. And so this moment that I get to see them love one another, it's like I think to myself, maybe there was something right I've done as a father, And it's that moment of joy. It's that moment of just like, I can finally breathe. And then, I get Jill whatever gift I give her, and I think about, trying to find the perfect gift. And when she opens it, oftentimes she's like, oh, you shouldn't have, which is code word for that's exactly what you should do, And we have that little banter back and forth, and just that moment there. And then, of course, after we open all the gifts, we all go around our kitchen table and we get to eat Jill's world famous cinnamon rolls right there. They're gorgeous. And these are like 5,000 calories per bite. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm just telling you, but they're so so delicious. And even that moment, together around the table, I'm watching the boys drinking their milk, smacking because of all like the caramel and stuff on the stuff, the cinnamon roll. And Jill and I are drinking our coffee. And it's just one of those, things that I just wish I could capture forever in time. Because there's so much joy. There's so much contentment. There's so much just this like, life is good. Life is good. And if I had to capture what I'm experiencing in all those kind of micro moments, I would capture it with one word. And the word would be happiness. It's happiness. Because happiness, by definition, is that contentment and joy. Happiness, if you look up the definition, it's that satisfaction and fulfillment in life. Happiness, by definition, is that well-being, that it's that daily well-being, that life is good. And if the research is correct, then research says the number one quest for your life and my life, all of humanity across our planet, the number one quest is happiness. The reason why we buy the things we buy, the reason why we do the things we do, date the people we date, buy the homes we buy, take the jobs we take, try to climb the ladder, do all these kind of things. The reason why, the greatest motivation behind that is the number one quest, according to research, is we're looking for happiness, that contentment, that lasting joy, that fulfillment and satisfaction in life. And guys, that's one of the reasons I am so looking forward and so grateful that we're in this series, this Christmas series that we're in, that we launched last week, called Hope. Because hope is that highway to happiness. It really is. According to the research, that hope is like, the catalyst to happiness. Hope is like that vehicle that on a daily basis delivers happiness, like all the UPS trucks and Amazon trucks that maybe you've seen around neighborhoods and so on. I mean, that is hope. Literally speaking, that's what hope is doing in your life and my life, the vehicle to deliver happiness. Again, the research points to this, and we looked at it last week. Dr. Hellman, who's a psychologist at the University of Oklahoma, he's a director of the Hope Research Center. He says this when it comes to hope. Over 2,000 studies point to this very point. He says, hope is one of the single best predictors of a person's well-being across their lifespan. In other words, if you were to look at a human life and you were to look at all the things that really help our daily well-being, that's our emotional, our psychological, physical, spiritual well-being, and that's the ingredients of happiness, what you would say is that hope is one of the single greatest things to actually deliver that in your life. It's one of the most powerful things in our lives. And then last week, we looked at some more research, and he goes on to say hope is not an emotion that's within us. Hope is a way of thinking, which I love that, because for years and years and years, when it came to hope, you know what I thought? I thought, oh, that's just weak. Hope is, just emotional. Hope is just religious. It's just like, get busy, do something, work, that kind of thing. And that's some of the brokenness in me too. But, that's what I thought of. But when you actually look at the research, when you take your time and you go, what is hope? Like, what is it actually? Hope, it's not an emotion. It's not weak. Oh, it's very powerful. It's a way of thinking, which means that you and I can grow in our hope. It means that hope can be taught. And that's what we're doing in this Christmas series. We're talking about hope. We're answering the question, what is hope? Honestly, what is it? Can we have a good definition? And then we're answering the question, how do we grow in our hope? If hope can be taught, and you can grow in your hope, and hope is the thing that delivers happiness, which is our number one quest in life, then how can we tangibly grow in our hope? And then how can we actually experience that intrinsic hope? Meaning on a daily basis, you wake up with optimism about the future. Is that even possible? Well, that's what we're talking about in this series. And so what is hope? What is hope? Well, Dr. Hellman gives us, I think, one of the best definitions. He said, hope is the belief that tomorrow will be better than today and that you have the power to make it so. In other words, yes, there is a emotional kind of wishful thinking part of hope. It's the, tomorrow's going to be better. It's going to work out. This is going to be better in my relationship, better in my future. That's an important piece of hope. But the thing is, hope doesn't end there. That's not its definition. Hope says you have the power to make it so. There are tangible things you can do in your life to actually grow in your hope. Well, what are those? Well, the research goes on and he says there are 3 ingredients to hope. The first is the cornerstone. It's the goal. This is perhaps the easiest part of hope. This is the idea to go, hey, what are you looking forward to for a better future? Well, I want a better relationship. I want a better marriage. I want to be financially free. I want to be closer to God. I want a better sex life. I want a better, relationship with my son or daughter. I want to climb the ladder at work. I want to get into that school. I want to date that person, whatever that is, right? That is the cornerstone of hope. That's important to get clarity on your goal. But then there's the second ingredient. And the second ingredient is willpower. This is what we talked about last week. And last week we said that the ultimate foundation for your willpower, your motivation day in and day out, is Christmas. This is why Christmas is so important. Because historically, something happened in our world. 2,000 years ago, it's undeniable. There is plenty of archaeology. There is plenty of historians. There's no reasonable historian that denies the fact that Jesus existed in this world. None. So there's real history that something happened in this world, and what happened is Christmas. This is so powerful to our willpower because Christmas is representing, it's an exclamation point in history that God keeps his promises, which means today that you can wake up every single day of your life knowing that you have intrinsic worth and value. You can look in the mirror and say, my value is not dependent upon whether or not, I made a certain amount of money or my titles or my accomplishments. No, that ebbs and flows. Come on. It's better than that. Christmas says you can look every single day in the mirror and go, I have intrinsic worth and value. I am absolutely beautiful and worth loving. Why? Because you're made in the image of God. That's what Christmas punctuates. Christmas punctuates the fact that every day you can wake up knowing that God is with you, that God is working, that God is active. Maybe not in the way that you want him to be active. Maybe not in the timeline. We want God to work in certain ways because remember, he's divine, you're not. He is infinite. We're finite. He is the God of today, which means our finite little lives in all of eternity. And he is the grand weaver, weaving every single thread to where one day in eternity, you will look at it and you will say, God is good, God is loving, God is just, God is fair. That day will come. That is an absolute promise, and we know God will keep that promise, and that God is working every single day because of Christmas. It's his promise. And Christmas means that in terms of our motivation, you can wake up every day and work. Not work for yourself or work for your boss or your teacher, but work for the Lord. Because he is active. He's working, and he will keep his promise. That's the ultimate motivation. But if you would say, well, Buck, I'm not a God follower, I'm not a Christ follower, what would be my motivation? What would be the willpower for me? Well, Dr. Hillman gives some really practical advice. He says one of the greatest things that you can do is actually write down positive things in your past that you have done. That yes, I have overcome that. Yes, I have lost weight. Yes, I have the power, to stand up to that. Yes, I have been financially free. Write those things down. You need to focus on those, he says. And then write down your goals. Write them down. Keep them front and center. And it is imperative. You got to write them down. This is not a game to play to like to go, I just kind of someday, one day. No, write them down, he says, and put them in front of you every single day. Those are the pillars of your motivation to help you accomplish a better future. But that's not it. There's also a third ingredient. And the third ingredient is called a pathway. And a pathway is fairly self-explanatory. This is your road. These are the activities. This is your plan to actually accomplish a better future. And you have to have all three of these ingredients because you can have a lot of willpower. In other words, you can get really emotional. You can even shed some tears and go, man, I so want a better marriage. I so want to be closer with God. I so want to be closer with my son or daughter. Wonderful. That's part of hope. But if you don't have a pathway, if you're stuck in your marriage and you're like, I don't know how to move forward. If you're stuck financially, if you're stuck in your relationship with God, you need some new information to get unstuck. That's the pathway. You have to have a pathway. And equally so, you may have a pathway, but you don't have the willpower. In other words, you know what to do. You know how to lose weight. You know how to have a better relationship. You know what you need to do to get that job, to get into that school. But yet the motivation isn't there. My point is this, is that you've got to have all three. And the beauty is these are simple, guys. These are simple things: goal, willpower, pathway, which means they're accessible. Every single one of us, regardless if you're a follower of Christ or not, every single one of us, regardless of your IQ, every single one of us, regardless of your socioeconomic status, your background, what's happened to you in life, tragedies, traumatic things, whatever's happened in our life, it's accessible. We can all grow in our hope. And that's why I love the series that we're in, where we're talking about hope. So today what I want to do is I simply want to continue this discussion. Last week, again, we talked about willpower. If you weren't here last week, I'd highly encourage you to go back. Today what I want to do is I want to talk about pathways. Now, here's the thing. I want to be upfront because honestly, today may not feel like a Christmas message. You may not walk out of here, you may not turn off whatever you're watching and go like, oh, that was super Christmassy. And I just want to be upfront with that because I know it's Christmas. I know this is a Christmas series. This message is the most practical part of this whole series. And the reason why I'm willing to take this risk and get practical with you guys is because, number one, I know you can handle it. But secondly, is because I so desire you to have hope. I honestly think one of the greatest gifts you could give yourself this year is the gift of hope. Because hope not only benefits you, it's not only the delivery vehicle for happiness, but also hope begets hope. If you walk in Christmas morning and you are hopeful, it actually cascades down to your kids, down to your family, down to your loved ones, down to your extended family. I mean, hope begets hope. So because I'm so determined, I have such a great desire for all of us to grow in our hope, I'm willing to take the risk and say, let's get really practical. Let's kind of get, in the weeds a little bit and talk about how can we all grow in our hope and what does it look like to be aware of our pathways. Now, the reason why we have to talk about pathways is because when it comes to pathways, there's so much confusion. Because oftentimes in our culture, especially, when you may have a friend or a loved one, we take pathways out and we think it's just going to be, hey, willpower and goal. And we use terms like if we just manifest it, if you just have good intentions, if you just follow your heart, if you just, have a good spirit, you're good and you just try really, really hard, then whatever you hope for, whatever you want will be manifested into your future. But there's a problem with that because the pathway is imperative. You have to have the pathway because you may be on the wrong pathway. It may not be the wisest pathway. It may not be the best way to actually get you to your future hopes and dreams. You may be stuck. How many times have you found yourself going, man, I really desire a better future here, but I've tried for years this thing and I'm stuck. That is about a pathway. We've got to put the pathway back in our hope because you've got to have all three and we need to get clarity because here's the reason why. And here's the principle when it comes to pathways, that your pathway, not your good intentions, not your wishful thinking, your pathway determines your future hope. So today, I just want us to get some clarity. I want us to get far more self-aware. Walk out of here or turn off whatever you're watching and say, today, I have some practical tools and keys to be far more self-aware. In fact, today what I want to do is I want to answer this question. How can we be prudent with our pathway? Now, let me just be straight up. The word prudent isn't a very popular word. I'm guessing like tomorrow you're not going to wake up and, text your buddy, hey, you're going to be prudent today? Hey, how's your prudent level? It's just not a popular word. But the reason I chose this word is because its definition. Prudent means to give care or thought to your future. That's prudent. That I'm going to consider what I'm doing today because it has future implications. Ooh. That is gold. Prudent is actually synonymous with the word wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to see a bigger picture than you currently see, the ability to understand all the different nuances and ingredients to help you get to where you want to get to. Wisdom. So the question is, how can you and I walk out of here and be prudent when it comes to your pathway? Whatever you desire, your better future, what's the pathway? So to help us answer this question, I actually want us to look at a letter that was written 3,000 years ago. And it's a letter called Proverbs. And Proverbs simply just means like advice for life for these truth statements. And this letter, Proverbs, was written 3,000 years ago by a man named Solomon. Solomon was one of the most famous kings of Israel. He was the son of King David. And Solomon, this letter, you may not know this, Solomon actually writes a letter, Proverbs, to his sons. It's a very intimate letter. He sits down one day and he's thinking about his sons and his son's future and all the things his sons are going to experience in life. And he's thinking about all of his life experience as a father. As a father, you have time. As a father, your frontal lobe is developed. As a father, you have life experience. And he's like, okay, how can I put this down and begin to write this wisdom to my sons? And when you think about Solomon, what he's writing down, you should lean in and pay attention, even if you're not a follower of Christ. Because Solomon, historically, was, according to Bible scholars, he had the most wisdom outside of Jesus Christ. Jesus, supreme, but in terms of humanity, Solomon was the wisest man ever to live. Solomon accomplished more things than all of us put together. He had more power, more prosperity. In fact, he had more wealth than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos put together. Far more wealth than that. He understood the pinnacle of life, of everything we're chasing after. And he writes this letter, and at the very beginning of Proverbs, he writes the why behind the what. He says, these advice, the pieces of truth, They'll give you insight into your relationships, every relationship. You want to understand relationships? Read Proverbs. And then he says, this will give you insight into how to be one of the greatest leaders of all time. You want to learn how to be a great leader? Read the letter of Proverbs. And then he says, this will give you insight into the mysteries of life. In other words, all those corners you get into, all those moments you're like, how do we figure this out? Man, this is so complex. Like, how do we discern what is the thing that's really going on? Read the letter of Proverbs. It's an intimate letter from a father to his sons by a brilliant man in history that gives us so much insight in life and answers the question, how can you be prudent with your pathway? So I want to look today at Proverbs chapter 27 because he speaks directly to the question we're asking. And here's what he says. We're just going to look at one proverb. He says, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going on their pathway and they suffer for it. So because we're only going to look at one proverb, today I want to ask you to do something that I hate. I think that's a strong word, but I'm there. Like anytime a public speaker asks me to say something out loud, I'm like, oh, don't do that. But I'm going to do the very thing I don't like people to do to me, to you. So let's see how this works. So I'm going to ask you to say this out loud. I'd love us to say it 2 times, right? Very short proverb, but this is so important to understand our pathway and get us to the thing we really desire in life. So are you guys with me? Anyone? Yeah, just you, boot. Yeah. So here we go. Here we go. Proverbs chapter 27 on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. Now, all of us together, all you guys here, all you guys listening online, you know, in your living room, on the treadmill, outside, wherever you're at, in your car, all together. Proverbs 27. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. Now, all the Longhorn fans, all together, you ready? No, I'm just kidding. That'd be weird, right? You're like, can we just move on? Yes, we can. So here's the point. He's painting this picture here. He's giving us this picture that we've all experienced in life, that every single one of us have had that moment in life where we see something maybe in our son, our daughter, maybe in our mom or dad, in that friend, maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend, where you're like, oh my gosh, if you keep going in that direction, it's not going to work out well. Like, you are on a path that is not wise. It's not going to work out. It's danger, danger. We've all had those experiences. In fact, I think about Jill and I several years ago. We were standing in our driveway, and it was Jill, myself, and my oldest son, Sam. And Sam's buddy was in his car, and Sam and his buddy were working on his car like all day. They were working on his exhaust system because Sam and his buddies, they like to like straight pipe their cars and make them sound super loud. They're into all this, you know, car stuff, and Jill and I are like, what are you doing? But they love it. So anyways, they're doing this whole thing, and they're working all day, getting his exhaust system. And so the moment came, Jill, myself, and Sam were standing there. His buddy gets in his car, you know, fires it up. That moment you've been working, and you finally fired up, and it sounded wonderful to Sam and his buddy. Now to Jill and I'm like, his engine sounds broke. It's jacked. It's weird, but he loved it. So anyways, they're like, he's revving it up, and his buddy has this big old smile, and he turns his radio on, and then he's like, hey, I'm going to take it for a drive, and we're like, go for it, and he puts it in reverse, and he slams his gas, and we're like, we watch it, and all of a sudden we see our Suburban at the time behind his car in the street. And we see what he's doing, and he's hitting the gas hard. And so Jill, myself, and Sam, we start going, whoa, stop, hey, look. He thinks we're cheering him on. He's like, yeah, you know, he's like, the time of my life, listen to it. So he hits the gas harder, and he just slams right in to our Suburban. Now, that, you know, created a more hopeless situation and a more financially less situation for him. But the point is, we've all experienced something like that. We've all seen those moments, but far more serious moments, right? Moments in a marriage, moments with a son or daughter as a parent, moments financially, moments with your relationship with God where you're going in a direction. We've all experienced those, and that's the point of Solomon. So here's what I want us to do. I actually want us to break this verse down so we can gain some wisdom and understanding and get what Solomon is getting to. So in this verse, I want you to think about it this way. There's 2 people, there's 2 responses, and 2 future outcomes. So who are the 2 people in this proverb. Two people. Let's start with the prudent. Well, the prudent, as I alluded to earlier, by definition, that means a person of wisdom, a person who sees, the bigger picture, a person who understands that life is choices and those choices are connected, that yesterday, today, and tomorrow, they're all connected. There's a sowing and a reaping effect. And it's over time, this sowing and reaping effect. The prudent person sees that they always have a choice in life, regardless of the trauma, regardless of the roadblocks, regardless of the tragedies in life. Yes, you need to process. You can't be dismissive about those things. But there's always a choice. The lock is always on the inside of the door. You can free yourself. The prudent person, anytime they're about to make a pathway decision, a decision in their life that's going to impact the future direction of their life, they ask a question like this. They say, in light of my past experiences, my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? Because I understand life is connected. And I understand my path, not my intention, as good as it may be, but my path will determine my future hope. So there is a deep curiosity. There's this sense of, hey, I'm going to invite people on this. Even if it's going to be hard, I got to swallow my pride. I want to understand my pathway. That is the prudent. But then, remember, two people. You have the prudent, and then you have the simple. Now, the simple would be the opposite. The simple is an individual who sees life as disconnected, who sees the moment. It's just today. It's no big deal. Why are you making it such a big deal, pastor? Why are you making it such a big deal, mom or dad? Like, you're so religious. You're so old school. You're so archaic. Like, come on. I'm just having a good time. It's just what I feel. And isn't my truth my truth? I will determine my truth. You dare not judge my truth. I mean, just come on. Back off. I'm just having a good time. No big deal. Whatever. It's just fun. It's just today. That's the simple. Oftentimes, the simple have a soundtrack playing in the back of their minds. And if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, perhaps the soundtrack is of Steppenwolf. And the soundtrack is Born to be Wild. Born to be wild. It's like, hey, whatever, baby. It's good. Come on, leave me alone. I'm fine. Just having a good time. It's no big deal. Quit making it such a big deal, right? Or if you're in your 20s, maybe in your teenage years, you may not know who Steppenwolf is, but you know who Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa is, and you perhaps have this soundtrack, Young, Wild, and Free. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to sing this, because if you've ever heard this song, this is definitely not appropriate, but the point is so appropriate. I mean, the whole thing is like, so what? So what? I don't care who sees. I don't care. I mean, it's just today. I'm just going to have a little fun. See, the simple feel like life is happening to them. Like there's nothing I can do. The lock's on the outside of the door. So you have the prudent and you have the simple. And then you have two responses. Two responses to what? Well, Solomon, the context of what he's saying they're looking at a pathway. They're aware of something on their path. I see some danger on my path. So this is that moment that your wife reflects something. This is that moment that your son reflects something, your boss, your teacher, your coach. This is that moment that your pastor or that counselor or that book, you read something. And there's that reflection moment, that moment you're like, oh, don't like to hear that. Maybe I need to hear that. Certainly don't like to hear that. That moment of awareness of your pathway. So what do? Well, Solomon says two responses to that moment. The prudent see danger and they take refuge. So what does the prudent do? They take refuge. They do something about it because they understand that yesterday and today and tomorrow, they're all connected. They understand that the lock is on the inside of the door, that they can do something about what's happening on their pathway. They have the power to free themselves. The prudent person acts with this information with curiosity, that they swallow their pride, that there's this moment to go, man, I don't want to hear it. But I know, coach, I know boss, I know mom, I know husband, I know wife, I know son. Like, you're giving me this information to help me see something I cannot see. Because the greatest person to deceive yourself is yourself. And they're just saying, hey, there may be something you may not see. I'm for your future hopes and dreams. Can I reflect something to you? Ooh, that's hard. I mean, we want to be defensive. We want to push back. But the prudent say, no, I understand how critical my pathway is. And if I'm not self-aware of my pathway, I will not realize my future hopes and dreams. So there's curiosity. But then there's the second person, the simple. Now, the simple, they get the same information, but they just keep going. The simple are like, how dare you? The simple are like, you can't judge. Doesn't Jesus say in Matthew 7 not to judge, which, by the way, you should read that on your own because there's a lot more that Jesus actually says about judging. And that's not what he actually says. But that's what the simple say. The simple feel like life again is happening. The lock's on the outside of the door. I mean, they hurt me, he hurt me, she hurt me. And again, hear me well. That's important. And you need to process that. And that's real. And there's a time to grieve. But you can also do something. You always have the power to do something. The lock is on the inside of the door. But the simple, no, it's not on the inside of the door. It's on the outside. It's just my situation. Nothing I can do about it. The simple turn up the soundtrack of Born to be Wild or Young, Wild, and Free. It goes from 5 to volume 9. And now, instead of curiosity, it's defensiveness. How dare you tell me that? How dare you judge me? Are you kidding me? I'm just having fun. Doesn't God want me to be happy? Is the question oftentimes. The simple will ask. So, let me just pause for a second and just ask you personally. I want you to think about your life. I want you to think about a future hope and dream. And I want you to think about what is your response when someone reflects something to you. In other words, how would you answer this question? When someone reflects something about your pathway, how do you respond? Simple, prudent. Simple, prudent. Curiosity, defensiveness. Where do you go with that? Because your path, not your intention, will determine your future hope. And then if you're like, well, I don't really know. Well, then let me ask you a second question. What would they say? What would your dad say? What would your wife say? What would your boss say? What would your coach say? What would your counselor say? What would they say? You owe it to yourself to know, simple, prudent, because there's an outcome, a future outcome to what we choose to do. And the mysterious thing that God gives you and me, far more than perhaps you've been taught, is freedom. You can choose. So what are the outcomes of the prudent? What are the outcomes of the simple? Well, quickly, Solomon tells us. He says the prudent, they take refuge. They do something about it. They become more self-aware. They get the information. They swallow their pride. And they take refuge. Well, the word refuge is a really interesting word. This is originally written in the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, the word refuge is this word. Read it from right to left, because I know we can all read Hebrew. And it's the word maklat. And maklat, the Hebrew word, literally means a place of refuge, a place of shelter, a place of safety. It also means a place of hope. It's your place to find rest. It's your place to realize that future hope and dream. It's to take refuge. When you act prudently, when you decide to step into the shoes of prudence and be curious and swallow the pride, oftentimes what you find is hope. But there's two people. There's another way you can go. Solomon says, hey, the simple keep going, and what happens? They suffer for it. There's a million examples I can give you, but I think we all know that there are things you know you ought to do. There are things your wife has been telling you, your husband, your mom, your dad, your son, your daughter, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, one of your best friends. They've been telling you for a long time, and you just keep going. And as a result, there's less hope in your tomorrow, in your next week, in your next month, and you're stuck. And that's the result, is hopelessness. So here's the deal. Back to Christmas. You see, guys, I think one of the greatest Christmas gifts you could give yourself this Christmas is to be prudent, is the gift of hope. And because if you give yourself the gift of hope, if you give yourself the gift of prudence, it is the pathway. It is the pathway to actually realize the thing that you're hoping for. And hope begets hope. So the question I want to ask and answer and leave us with is, okay, how do we be prudent? I mean, if we're just talking and we're going, okay, what are some of the keys? What are some of the things we can do to actually step into being prudent with our pathway? Well, there's a couple. There's a lot. But today, I just want to leave you with 3 keys. First and foremost is the first key is what I call the light. The key to be prudent with your pathway is the light. You got to light up what's going on. One of the greatest gifts you could give yourself is clarity. Clarity is liberating. It's so freeing. To give yourself, now sometimes it's not fun, but you need to light it up and go, okay, what's actually happening? Can I be self-aware? Well, who is the light? What is the light? Well, this is why Christmas is so important. Because when Jesus came into the world 2,000 years ago, which is Christmas is all about, Jesus said these words. He said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me, that's so important, will not walk in darkness, but will have, look at this, the light of life the hope of life. See, when Jesus came in the world, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. See, you're looking for truth. You're looking for life. You're looking for the way. What's the way? What's the way? What's the path? What's the path? I'm right here, Jesus says. Jesus says, I'm the author and the perfecter of your life and of your faith. Jesus says, I knit you together in your mother's womb. Jesus said, I've come to give you life and life to the full. You want a full life? Man, I designed you. I created you. It's in my design, not outside of my design, right here. Look right here. I've spoken to every area of your life, every pathway you can imagine. Relational pathways, financial pathways, moral pathways, sexual pathways, professional pathways, any kind of pathway you want to think about, it's right here, Jesus would say, eyes on me. Well, what does that look like practically? Well, the scriptures, this is one of the reasons why. I encourage you to read your Bibles because it describes the life of Jesus. You know, I love what the psalmist says. The psalmist says, the word is a lamp to my feet and a light unto my path. You see, I know sometimes perhaps you feel that feeling, I should. Well, you should. It's a pathway. And it lights up your path. And when we read the scriptures daily and we begin to investigate the life of Jesus and what did he say and how did he act and what did he design me to do, because maximum freedom is found not outside of his design, but found in his design. I want to experience hope. I want to experience life to the full. Jesus says, okay, follow me. On the same coin of Jesus, believe, follow. Believe, follow. Yes, it's going to come at a cost. Yes, it may be inconvenient, but it's where you find life and life to the full. It's to daily open the scriptures and say, man, I just want to look at the life of Jesus because he is the author and perfecter. He is the light of my path. Secondly, is what I would say is the people. The key is the people. You know, every story of hope I hear always has people. The story always goes something like, I was stuck, I wanted a better future, and then I met him. Then I met them. Then I met her. Then that person at work. Then that person at church. I mean, stories of hope, I hear something like this all the time. Buck, you know, my marriage, we were totally stuck. I was hopeless. We had no more. In fact, we'd met with the lawyers. It was done. You know, we'd settled things. We were pretty much finished. And we said, well, let's give it one more shot. Let's go to church. And so they decided to come to church, and they come and they hear this thing called Marriage Matters. And they're like, okay, let's give it one last shot. They get involved with a group of people. And they discover that they're not alone. They discover that maybe there's some things that can adjust their pathway. That's what people do. They give you things to see that you cannot see. And they begin adjusting your pathway. And they said, you know, man, we were part of this group and we just felt like we're not alone. And we just felt so isolated and alone. And people were experiencing the same things we were experiencing. And then we heard some really practical advice. And then we had to come back every week, which created this accountability and this motivation. So the people gave adjustments and they gave motivation because I saw them every single week. I'm telling you, Buck, our marriage isn't perfect, but we have far more hope in our marriage. It's the people. That there's 2 to 3 relationships outside of your significant relationship, whatever that may be. 2 to 3 people, fully disclosing relationship, which takes time to build, trust to build. That you're just like, hey, I'm not here to impress you. I'm not here to try to, you know, I'm not here to fake it. This is who I am. This is my life. This is my pathways. And 2 to 3 people can tell you what it's like on the other side of you, can tell you what's your pathway, can give you that adjustment and that motivation. It's the people. And the last key, I would say, is this, is the prayer. And what I mean by prayer is this, is I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, when somebody sits down and the nature of my role as a pastor, people are like, hey, Buck, what should I do? How should I move forward? Here's my situation. I'm stuck. What should I do? One of the first questions I always ask is, well, what has God said? Have you invited God into this? And I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 times the answer is no. It's no. I've been trying to figure it out. Been, you know, reading these books and, you know, doing wonderful, but what does God say? You see, God is for you. You never have to question if he's for you. If God was willing to give his one and only son, and his one and only son died for you, spilt his blood for you, so you could have peace with God and peace in your life, if he's done that, then once and for all, he's for you. God is for you. And he wants to be involved, but he gives you the freedom to invite or not invite. And this is that moment. Whatever your pathway is, whatever your dreams are, the question is, have you invited God into that? What does that look like? Practically speaking, it's a very simple prayer. It goes something like this. Lord, I'm dependent upon you to reveal my path and give me the wisdom to know what to do and the courage to do it. It's the idea to go, whatever your future hopes and dreams are. As you examine your pathway, what am I going to do to get me there? I don't know. God, you do. You're the author of life. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Okay, God, I'm going to invite you in. What is this? Would you reveal this to me and give me the wisdom to know what to do and then the courage to do it? And then the question is, are you going to listen? We are quick to pray and then quick to run. Are you willing to open your palms and sit there at least maybe 5 minutes and be still and know that he is God and listen to what he has to say? It's a game changer. So this Christmas, I'll leave you with this. The greatest gift, I think one of the greatest gifts you could give yourself is hope, which means you need to be prudent with your pathway. How can you be prudent with your pathway? Because your path, not your intention, will determine your future hope. Well, pick one of these. Maybe the light, maybe the people, maybe the prayer, whatever it is. This Christmas season, pick one of those and have the courage to be willing to do it and then see what God has for your future hope. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you that we can have discussions practical like this. God, I know there's a lot more questions, and I know you have the answer to those questions. And so, Father, as we think about the things that we've heard, we not only thank you that you've preserved these letters for so long that are so relevant to our life, but my request and my dependence upon you is to meet all of us exactly where we're at. Reveal the pathway we need to take, what that looks like. Give us the wisdom to know how to move forward. And then ultimately, would you give us the courage to do that? God, I love you, and we need you. In Jesus' name, amen. Guys, thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next week.